January 7th, 1966. Cu Chai District, northwest of Saigon, 6:12 a.m. The jungle is already alive. Cicadas scream from the trees. Damp heat clings to the skin like a second uniform. Private First Class Robert Bobby Keller, 25th Infantry Division, shifts the weight of his M16 and wipes sweat from his eyes with a muddy sleeve. He's been in Vietnam for 3 months, long enough to know that silence here never means safety. The platoon is moving slowly through a patch of scrub jungle near a small hamlet. Mud huts, thatched roofs, abandoned cooking fires still warm. Intelligence reports say Viet Cong units were spotted here less than 24 hours ago. But there are no bodies, no footprints, no signs of retreat, just nothing. Doesn't make sense, whispers Staff Sergeant James Harlan, the squad leader, crouched low. They were here. Where the hell did they go? Then it happens. A sharp crack, not a gunshot. The ground collapses beneath the boots of the point man. He disappears waist-deep into the earth with a shout. The squad freezes, rifles snapping up, fingers tight on triggers. "Trap! Trap!" someone yells. But it isn't a punji pit. It isn't a mine. It's a hole. A perfectly camouflaged opening, no wider than a man's shoulders, concealed beneath leaves and soil. Air rises from it, cool, stale, unmistakably human. Harlan kneels beside the opening, peering down into darkness that seems to swallow the morning light. "What the hell is that?" Keller mutters. No one answers, because none of them have words for what they're looking at. What the soldiers of the 25th Infantry have just stumbled upon is not a hideout. It's not a bunker. It's the entrance to something far larger. Something that, at this moment, American commanders do not yet fully understand. The Cu Chi tunnel system. In the early 1960s, as the United States escalated its involvement in Vietnam, American forces believed they understood the battlefield. They had helicopters, artillery, air superiority, and the most advanced military technology on Earth. The Viet Cong, by comparison, were thought to be lightly armed guerrillas. Dangerous, yes, but ultimately vulnerable. That belief would not survive the jungle. Cu Chai lies about 25 miles from Saigon, in an area once dominated by rubber plantations. On maps, it looks insignificant. Flat land, villages, patches of forest. But beneath the surface, another world exists. By 1966, this underground network stretches for over 120 miles, weaving beneath villages, rivers, fields, and even American bases. It includes sleeping quarters, command rooms, kitchens, hospitals, weapons caches, and escape routes that lead miles away. And almost none of it is visible from above. Back at the hole, Sergeant Harlan radios in. "We've got some kind of underground structure," he says. "Possibly extensive." The response crackles through static. Higher command orders them to secure the area and investigate. That's when the volunteers step forward. Not because they want to, but because someone has to. They call them tunnel rats. At this point, the term hasn't even entered official vocabulary yet. These are ordinary infantrymen, usually smaller, faster soldiers, who crawl into the earth armed with a pistol, a flashlight, and little else. No body armor, no backup, no guarantee they'll come back out. Specialist Tommy Delgado is one of the first to go down. He tapes his flashlight to his wrist, checks the magazine of his .45 pistol, and lowers himself into the hole. The earth closes around him immediately. The tunnel is barely wide enough to crawl. The air is thick with dust and the smell of damp soil. Delgado moves inch by inch, heart hammering so loudly he's sure it can be heard from above. 10 feet in, the tunnel turns sharply left, then right, then slopes downward. This isn't a simple hole. This is architecture. Above ground, Keller waits, staring at the hole, every nerve screaming. Minutes pass. Then Delgado's voice echoes faintly from below. "There's more down here," he calls. "A lot more." What Delgado doesn't yet know, but will soon learn, is that these tunnels are designed to kill intruders. False passages lead to dead ends filled with mines. Air vents double as grenade traps. Narrow choke points force enemies to crawl single file, blind and exposed. And the Viet Cong know every inch of it. The Cu Chi tunnels did not appear overnight. Their origins trace back to the late 1940s, during the war against French colonial forces. Local villagers began digging simple hiding tunnels to avoid patrols and air raids. Over time, these tunnels grew deeper, longer, more complex. By the time American troops arrive in force in the 1960s, Cu Chi is no longer just a refuge. It is a subterranean city. Entire families live below ground during the day, emerging only at night to farm, cook, and move supplies. Fighters sleep beneath villages that appear peaceful and compliant by daylight. American patrols can sweep an area repeatedly, declare it cleared, and leave, never knowing that dozens of enemy fighters are lying silently beneath their boots. Delgado reaches a chamber no bigger than a closet. Mud walls, a wooden bench, a stack of documents wrapped in oilcloth, maps, diagrams, handwritten notes. This is not a hiding place. This is a command post. When Delgado returns to the surface, his face is pale, eyes wide. "They're not running from us," he says quietly. "They're living under us." That realization hits the platoon harder than any ambush, because it means something terrifying. The enemy isn't retreating. They're waiting. In Saigon, reports begin to pile up. Patrols vanish and reappear miles away. Bombed villages show no bodies. Areas marked as pacified erupt in sudden attacks weeks later. Commanders struggle to understand how the Viet Cong can absorb such punishment and continue fighting. The answer is beneath their feet, and it changes everything. As the sun climbs higher over Cu Chi, engineers are called in. More tunnel entrances are found, hidden in termite mounds, beneath cooking fires, inside wells. By the end of the day, American forces realize they are standing on top of an underground network larger than many U.S. military bases. One officer reportedly mutters, "You could fight a whole war down there." He isn't wrong, and this is only the beginning. Because once the United States truly understands what lies beneath Cu Chi, it will respond with fire, gas, bombs, and bulldozers. And still, the tunnels will survive. January 9th, 1966. Cu Chi District, 238 Elm. The jungle is quieter at night. Not silent, never silent, but different. The insects hum instead of scream. The air cools just enough to trick the body into relaxing. Above ground, flares drift down slowly, turning the treetops white for a few seconds at a time. Below ground, the war is wide awake. Deep inside the Cu Chi tunnel network, Nguyen Van Minh, a 19-year-old Viet Cong courier, moves barefoot through darkness he knows better than daylight. His shoulders brush packed clay walls smoothed by thousands of hands before his. He carries a canvas satchel tight against his chest. Rice, medical gauze, handwritten orders wrapped in waxed cloth. Min has never seen Saigon, but he knows every turn beneath it. The tunnel he moves through is part of a 3-level system. The first level sits just 10 feet underground, used for quick movement, combat, and escape during firefights. The second level goes deeper, housing sleeping areas, kitchens, and storage rooms. The third level plunges nearly 30 feet below the surface, where command centers and hospitals operate beyond the reach of most bombs. Each level is connected by narrow vertical shafts sealed with camouflaged wooden lids. Air vents snake upward, disguised as termite mounds or tree roots. Smoke from underground kitchens is routed through long channels to disperse heat and scent far from its source. American bombers can flatten the jungle above. Down here, the earth absorbs the shock. Min pauses at a junction and listens. He hears nothing. That means it's safe. He passes a small underground infirmary where wounded fighters lie shoulder to shoulder on bamboo mats. A woman in her 40s, once a village midwife, now a combat medic, cleans shrapnel wounds by the light of a single oil lamp. There is no anesthesia, no electricity, no running water. Yet men survive here who American doctors would consider lost causes. Above ground, American forces believe they are winning. Body counts rise. Villages are secured. Enemy units melt away under artillery fire. But Min's world tells a different story. Here, orders still arrive from Hanoi. Supplies still move south. Units rotate, rest, and rearm without ever being seen. This is how the Viet Cong fight a modern army, by refusing to be visible. By early 1966, U.S. commanders know the tunnels exist. What they don't yet grasp is how sophisticated they are. Initial attempts to destroy them are blunt and devastating. B-52s carpet bomb suspected tunnel zones. Napalm scorches the surface. Bulldozers push entire villages into pits. Chemical defoliants, Agent Orange, strip trees bare, exposing the jungle floor. For a brief moment, it seems like the tunnels must be crushed. Then patrols return, and the Viet Cong are still there. The problem isn't firepower, it's geometry. The tunnels twist and turn at sharp angles to absorb blast waves. Trapdoors seal sections off instantly. Flooded chambers divert explosions into dead ends. Even poison gas, pumped into tunnel openings, often fails. The tunnels are segmented. Gas dissipates before reaching deeper levels. Fighters simply wait it out, holding wet cloths over their faces. One U.S. engineer later admits, "We were fighting a three-dimensional war with two-dimensional thinking." Desperation breeds innovation. American units begin experimenting. Water is pumped into tunnels, only to drain into hidden channels. Dogs are brought in, but the Viet Cong counter by handling American uniforms and soap to confuse scent trails. Finally, the military accepts the unthinkable. Men must go down there. The tunnel rats are formalized. Volunteers are trained, briefly. They learn how to detect tripwires by feel, how to listen for breathing in the dark, how to fire a pistol in a space barely larger than a coffin. Their life expectancy is measured in missions, not months. Specialist Tommy Delgado returns underground again, this time deeper. The tunnel narrows. He exhales slowly, forcing his shoulders through. Sweat runs into his eyes. His flashlight flickers. Then he smells it. Smoke. Fresh. Someone is close. Delgado freezes, pistol raised. A second later, a shadow moves. A shot echoes through the tunnel, deafening, disorienting. Delgado fires blindly. The tunnel fills with dust and screams. When he emerges hours later, shaking and pale, the officers realize something crucial. The Viet Cong are not hiding underground. They are fighting from it. Each tunnel is mapped not on paper, but in memory. Children learn routes as games. Elderly villagers maintain ventilation shafts. Fighters memorize junctions and escape paths until the darkness becomes familiar, almost comforting. This is not just a military system. It is a social ecosystem. Destroying it would mean destroying everything above it too. In late 1966, U.S. commanders order large-scale tunnel clearing operations. Entire companies are assigned to secure and destroy Cu Chi. They will fail, not because they lack courage, but because the tunnels adapt faster than doctrine. Every destroyed entrance leads to 3 more being dug. Every flooded section is rerouted. Every captured document reveals a system already changed. The Viet Cong accept loss as a cost of survival. Time is on their side. For soldiers like Keller, the psychological toll is worse than the physical danger. Patrols feel pointless. The jungle becomes an illusion. Safety exists nowhere, not even inside bases, which may sit unknowingly atop tunnel complexes. At night, American troops swear they hear movement beneath their tents. Sometimes they're right. By 1967, Cu Chi becomes infamous. It is called the Iron Triangle, a region the U.S. military cannot pacify despite overwhelming force. More bombs fall here than almost anywhere else in South Vietnam. Still, the tunnels endure. And with each failed attempt to eliminate them, a grim realization begins to form among American leadership. This war cannot be won by destroying what can be rebuilt underground. It cannot be won by killing enemies who disappear into the earth. And it cannot be won quickly. The tunnels are not just a tactic. They are a strategy of endurance. And soon, that strategy will shape the most shocking moment of the entire war. October 12th, 1967, Cu Chi District, 11:57 p.m. The ground trembles, not violently, but constantly. Deep underground, the vibration feels like distant thunder rolling through clay walls. Above, B-52 stratofortresses unload their payloads, each bomb striking with enough force to flatten entire city blocks. The Americans call it arc light, a demonstration of overwhelming power meant to break the enemy's ability to fight. Down here, the Viet Cong count seconds, not explosions. Seconds. Nguyen Van Minh presses his back against the tunnel wall as dust drifts from the ceiling. He's learned the rhythm by heart. The bombs fall in waves. The earth shakes. Then there is a pause. That pause is survival. He exhales slowly and moves again. Around him, the underground city holds. From 1966 through 1968, Cu Chi becomes one of the most heavily bombed regions in the world. The United States drops thousands of tons of explosives on an area barely the size of a county. Forests vanish. Villages are erased from maps. From the air, it looks like annihilation. From below, it feels like pressure. The tunnels are not indestructible, but they are resilient in ways American planners never anticipated. Packed earth absorbs shock. Sharp turns dissipate blast waves. Collapsible walls sacrifice sections of tunnel to protect deeper levels. What cannot be saved is sealed off and abandoned. The war underground is one of containment, not control. American commanders grow increasingly frustrated. After-action reports show high enemy casualties on paper. But contact with large Viet Cong units becomes rarer, not more frequent. Every time American forces sweep Cu Chi, they find fewer fighters above ground. It is as if the enemy is dissolving. The truth is more unsettling. They are waiting. In Saigon, intelligence officers begin to piece together what Cu Chi represents. This is not just a defensive structure. It is an offensive launch platform. From these tunnels, Viet Cong units can move unseen, emerge near American bases, attack, and vanish again before helicopters arrive. Weapons are cached underground. Fighters rest within striking distance of targets. Cu Chi sits just miles from Saigon itself. That fact terrifies planners. In late 1967, U.S. engineers try something new. They attempt to collapse the tunnels entirely using massive bulldozers called Rome plows. These machines tear through jungle and soil alike, stripping vegetation and pushing earth into the tunnels. For weeks, the landscape is reshaped. But underground, men and others adapt. They dig deeper, they reroute, they endure. What American forces fail to fully grasp is that Cu Chi is not unique. Similar tunnel networks exist across South Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta, near the DMZ, along the Cambodian border. Cu Chi is simply the most developed, the most refined. It is the proof of concept. Morale among U.S. troops begins to fray. Soldiers speak of fighting ghosts. Patrols feel futile. Bases are fortified, yet never truly secure. Snipers appear from nowhere. Mortars land with uncanny precision. At night, fear takes on a new dimension. The enemy is no longer somewhere out there. He may be under you. For tunnel rats, the war becomes intensely personal. Specialist Tommy Delgado is thinner now. Quieter. He sleeps poorly. Each mission underground is a descent into sensory deprivation. Darkness presses in. Sweat pools. Every sound is magnified. The scrape of cloth, the drip of water, the faint inhale of another human being. Sometimes, Delgado encounters empty tunnels. Sometimes, he does not. He finds living quarters with still warm hammocks, abandoned cooking pots, children's toys carved from wood. This is not a battlefield. It is a home, and destroying it feels different. By December 1967, American leadership is publicly optimistic. General William Westmoreland declares that the enemy is nearing collapse. Body counts are up. Major bases remain secure. Victory, he says, is visible. Underground, Min hears different news. Orders circulate through the tunnels quietly, deliberately. Something is coming. The tunnel system hums with movement. Units reposition. Weapons are moved closer to cities. Fighters who have lived underground for years prepare to surface, not to flee, but to attack. Cu Chi, long a shield, is about to become a sword. Min delivers his satchel to a command chamber lit by a single bulb, powered by a generator hidden miles away. Officers study maps of Saigon, Tan Son Nhut Air Base, provincial capitals. These are not raids. These are coordinated strikes. For years, American power has rained down from above. Soon, the war will rise from below. On the surface, American patrols notice unusual quiet, fewer ambushes, less movement. To many, it feels like progress. To those who understand Cu Chi, it feels like the stillness before something catastrophic. The tunnels have done their job. They have preserved manpower. They have absorbed punishment. They have allowed an outmatched force to survive long enough to choose the moment of escalation. And when that moment arrives, the United States will learn that winning battles is not the same as winning wars. Because the enemy was never running. He was preparing. January 31st, 1968. Saigon outskirts, 2:41 a.m. The first explosions are mistaken for celebration. Firecrackers are expected tonight. It is Tet, the Lunar New Year, traditionally a time of ceasefires, family gatherings, and brief peace. Even in war, habits linger. American troops have been told to expect a quiet night. Private First Class Robert Keller is half awake inside his bunker when the sound reaches him. Sharp, heavy, wrong. This is not celebration. This is artillery. Miles away, beneath the shattered jungle of Cu Chi, tunnel lids slide open silently. Men emerge where no one expects them. They have been waiting for this night for years. The Tet Offensive erupts across South Vietnam almost simultaneously. More than 80,000 Viet Cong and North Vietnamese troops strike over 100 cities, towns, and military installations. Saigon, Hue, Da Nang. Provincial capitals long considered secure. For American forces, the shock is immediate and visceral. The enemy was not beaten. The enemy was beneath them. Cu Chi becomes one of the primary launch points. From tunnel exits hidden in villages and forests, Viet Cong units move directly toward Saigon. Some wear civilian clothes, others carry rifles wrapped in cloth. They bypass American patrol routes entirely, appearing deep inside the defensive perimeter. U.S. bases come under attack from directions planners never anticipated. The underground has turned into a highway. At Tan Son Nut Air Base, mortars rain down with terrifying accuracy. Sappers breach the perimeter. For hours, fighting rages at the gateway to Saigon. American commanders scramble. How did they get so close? Someone demands. The answer is brutal in its simplicity. They never left. Inside the tunnels, couriers like Nguyen Van Minh move continuously. Orders pass from chamber to chamber. Casualty reports flow back underground. Reinforcements are routed through passages that American bombs never touched. The tunnel system, once dismissed as a nuisance, has enabled the largest coordinated offensive of the war. And now the cost becomes clear. Militarily, Tet is a disaster for the Viet Cong. They take massive losses. Entire units are wiped out in street fighting. The underground hospitals overflow. Minh helps carry wounded fighters through narrow passages slick with blood and mud. Above ground, American and ARVN forces eventually regain control. By body count, the United States wins. But wars are not decided by spreadsheets. Television cameras capture burning cities, gunfire in the streets of Saigon. The U.S. Embassy compound breached, civilians fleeing in panic. For the American public, this is not victory. This is betrayal of expectation. For years, they were told the enemy was nearly defeated. Now the enemy appears everywhere. In Washington, confidence collapses. General Westmoreland's assurances ring hollow. Journalists question the narrative. Politicians waver. And quietly, within the military itself, a realization sets in. The tunnels were not a sideshow. They were the foundation. In the weeks after Tet, American forces returned to Cu Chi with renewed fury. Entire sectors are designated free fire zones. Bombing intensifies. Tunnel clearing operations escalate. Gas, water, explosives. Everything is tried. Still, tunnels remain. They are damaged, yes. Sections collapse. Fighters die. But the system does not disappear, because it was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to buy time. By mid-1968, U.S. strategy begins to shift. Search and destroy gives way to pacification, then to Vietnamization. The language changes. The objectives narrow. The war is no longer about winning decisively. It is about leaving. Cu Chi, once a battleground, becomes a symbol, not of Viet Cong strength alone, but of American limitation. Private Keller survives Tet, but something in him changes. He no longer believes in secure zones, no longer trusts cleared maps. He understands now that control on the surface means nothing if the earth beneath remains hostile. Many soldiers feel the same. The tunnels have altered not just tactics, but psychology. They have taught an entire army what it means to fight an enemy who refuses to fight on your terms. Nguyen Van Minh also survives. Many of his comrades do not. By 1969, the Viet Cong as a force is badly weakened. The war increasingly shifts toward the North Vietnamese army. The tunnels of Cu Chi fall quieter. Some are abandoned, some are sealed, some remain hidden, waiting. Years later, American veterans will return to Cu Chi. They will crawl into preserved tunnels, widened for tourists, lit by electric bulbs. They will shake their heads in disbelief. This is where they were, they will say, all that time. And they will finally understand what could not be fully grasped in war. Cu Chi was never about defeating the United States outright. It was about outlasting it, about surviving pressure that no conventional force could endure above ground, about turning weakness into invisibility, and invisibility into endurance. The tunnels did not win the war alone, but without them, the war would have ended very differently. They allowed a smaller, poorer force to survive long enough to reshape the battlefield, the narrative, and the will of a superpower. They proved that technology could be neutralized by patience, that firepower could be absorbed by earth, that sometimes the most powerful weapon is simply the refusal to be destroyed. Above ground, the jungle regrows. Below ground, silence returns. The city beneath the jungle has done its work. April 30th, 1945. Saigon, 10:24 a.m. The helicopters are already lifting off. Rotor blades carve the humid air above rooftops packed with desperate civilians. Papers scatter. Flags are lowered. Radios crackle with final transmissions that trail off into static. The Vietnam War is ending above ground. But far away, beneath a quiet stretch of land northwest of the city, the earth remains unchanged. The tunnels of Cu Chi are still there. By the final years of the war, much of the original Su Chi network has fallen silent. Some passages are collapsed, others are flooded or sealed. Many fighters who once lived underground have moved north, absorbed into regular North Vietnamese army units. Yet the tunnels endure, not as active weapons, but as proof. Proof that for nearly 2 decades, a modern superpower fought an enemy it could not fully see, map, or destroy. For American soldiers who survived Cu Chi, the memory never fades. Years later, veterans describe a war that felt upside down, where dominance in the sky meant little, where the ground itself was hostile, where victory could vanish the moment a unit withdrew. They remember the fear of sitting on sandbags at night, wondering what lay beneath. They remember the feeling of fighting an enemy who did not need to win battles, only survive them. The United States dropped more bombs on Vietnam than were used in all of World War II. It deployed helicopters, sensors, defoliants, bulldozers, and firepower beyond imagination. And still, men like Nguyen Van Minh moved unseen through tunnels carved with shovels and bare hands. The contrast is staggering. Technology versus terrain, speed versus patience, visibility versus invisibility. Cu Chi was not an accident of geography. It was a deliberate choice, a strategy born from necessity, refined by experience, and sustained by collective will. Villagers dug not for glory, but for survival. Fighters lived underground, not because it was easy, but because it was the only way to endure. Every tunnel was an act of defiance. Every hidden chamber a rejection of inevitability. In the years after the war, Cu Chi becomes a place of study. Military academies analyze it. Engineers map it. Psychologists examine its effects on morale and perception. Historians debate its true impact. But no analysis fully captures what it meant to live there. To breathe recycled air, to sleep inches from enemies above, to fight a war without ever seeing the sky. Today, parts of Cu Chi are preserved. Tourists crawl through widened tunnels, guided by lights and railings. They emerge sweating, claustrophobic, shaken. Most last only minutes underground. The people who lived there lasted years. The tunnels remind us of something uncomfortable. Wars are not always won by strength. They are sometimes won by endurance, by adaptation, by refusing to disappear when disappearance is demanded. For the United States, Cu Chi represented a hard truth. You can dominate territory. You can destroy infrastructure. You can win battles again and again, and still lose the war if you cannot break the enemy's will to continue. For Vietnam, Cu Chi became part of a larger story, not of invincibility, but of survival against impossible odds, of how a people learned to turn the ground beneath their feet into shelter, weapon, and lifeline. The jungle has grown back now. Bomb craters are softened by grass. Villages stand where fire bases once rose. And beneath it all, the earth holds its memory. Silent, patient, unbroken, this is why U.S. soldiers couldn't believe how the Viet Cong lived underground for years without being found. Because they weren't just hiding, they were enduring. And in the end, endurance changed history.